All right, I've got my notes in Cami and I'm ready to go. So we're doing parallel and perpendicular lines today. Parallel and perpendicular lines line the same plane, meaning xy coordinate, and they never intersect. So lines L and N here are examples of parallel lines. They will never intersect. And you can see their slope or steepness. So their slopes are the same. And we're going to come back to that over and over and over again in this lesson. So really important. All right, so if a line has a slope m, the line of any parallel line's slope is also m. On the other hand, perpendicular lines are a little bit different. Here's our example down here. They intersect at a right angle. It is also known as a 90-degree angle. So for example, lines T and N are perpendicular. The small square, this right here, shows us that. It indicates that it's a right angle. So the slopes of perpendicular lines are, and again, we'll come back to this over and over again, opposite reciprocals. Opposite means one's positive, one's negative. Reciprocals, which I like to call refliprocals, mean we're going to flip our fraction. All right, so we have an example here of 4/5. So to the opposite of 4/5, right here, we have to take the opposite, making the next one negative, and we have to do the refliprocal, which means instead of 4/5, we have 5/4. Opposite reciprocals. This is the same if we have a line with a slope of -2. So think of a slope of -2. To make it a fraction, we put it over 1. And to change to our new slope, if it's negative, our new slope will be positive. The reciprocal of 2/1 will be 1/2. Opposite reciprocals. And that's why a slope of 1/2 is the opposite reciprocal of a slope of -2. So there's a general rule here, but opposite reciprocals are a little bit easier to think of instead of this rule right here. All right, so let's go through some examples. So in all of these examples, you're going to see the exact same thing over and over again. It's going to tell you if it's parallel or perpendicular. Oh, let's do this because we're going to see this over and over again. It's going to tell you if it's parallel or perpendicular. That's just talking about slopes. Notice both of these, slopes of parallel lines, slopes of perpendicular lines. So parallel or perpendicular is going to tell us something about slope. Then they're going to give us an equation that we want to be parallel or perpendicular to. That means I only care about thinking about the slope in that equation. And then they're going to give us a point. And we're going to use that point and the slope we come up with to find an equation. All right, so in this case, parallel, well, parallel means the same slope. So the slope of this line is -3. So we also want to have a slope of -3. Then we have a coordinate pair. We're going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. Our y is 3. Our slope is -3. Our x is -1. Have to find the y-intercept. It's not the same usually as your equation that you were given in the problem. And in this case, we're definitely going to find that. And we find that our slope, our y-intercept is 0. So our y-intercept is 0, which is totally okay. Our final equation will only have our slope and our y-intercept. So I could say -3x plus 0, but adding 0 is the same thing as not adding anything at all. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. Same thing here. So one more time. Parallel means same slope. So we want the same slope as this equation. That means a slope of 5. We're given this point. Let's plug them into y equals mx plus b. 6 equals 5 times 3 plus b. Solve for b. And we find that b is -9. So our final equation is 5x minus 9. Nice. Perpendicular is a little bit different. Remember, we're doing opposite reciprocal slopes. That means we're going to change it from positive to negative or negative to positive, and we're going to flip the fraction. The next 3 will be all like this. So my slope right now is 4 in this equation. I'm going to make it over 1 to make it a fraction. It's positive, so my new slope is going to be negative. And when I flip it, I get 1 over 4. So this is the new slope I'm going to work with for this equation. I also have an xy. So I'm going to plug it into y equals mx plus b. 5 equals negative 1/4. My x is 8 plus b that I don't know yet. So when I see negative 1/4, what I really just see is this divide by 4. So that's what I'm going to do to 8. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this is divide, and then I multiply by 1. Multiplying by 1 just means I'm still at 2. It's negative. I get negative 2. You could also do that by multiplying by negative 0.25. I add 2 on both sides, and I get 7. My final equation is y equals negative 1/4 x plus 7. All right, this is the same thing here. So again, opposite reciprocals. So my current slope is negative 2/3, which means my new slope, because this one was negative, my new slope will be positive. And reciprocal, I'm going to flip it 3/2, which by the way is also 1.5. So you can use 1.5, though I'll be using the fraction. I've got my xy right here. So 16 equals 3/2 times 6 plus b. When I see a fraction, what I see is the top. When I'm multiplying by a fraction, the top is what I'm going to multiply by, and the bottom is what I'm going to divide by. So to 6, I can divide by 2 and multiply by 3, or multiply by 3 and then divide by 2. I'm going to divide first. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And you can check that by doing 1.5 times 6, but you'll still get 9. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides, and I'm going to get 7. It's just a coincidence that this is the same y-intercept as the last problem. I'm only going to put my slope and y-intercept in here. All set. One last one, and it has a really important point about when you see an equation that doesn't quite look like it has a slope. This does have a slope, and negative is not the slope. In this case, there's an invisible 1 right here. So in this case, our slope is currently negative 1. We want to find the perpendicular slope, so we're going to find the opposite reciprocal. Put this over 1, because I can make anything into a fraction by putting it over 1. Since our last slope is negative, our new slope will be positive. 1 over 1 when I flip is still 1 over 1. 1 divided by 1 and positive, that's just positive 1. So my slope is 1. xy, y equals mx plus b. My y is 12. My m is 1, or my slope. My x is 5. I don't know what b is. And the math is pretty easy from there. And crazy enough, our slope is still 7. Totally coincidence. So I could write y equals 1x plus 7, or I could just write y equals x plus 7, because they both mean the same thing. Thank you so much.